If you just watch the breakdown of the T-Rex escape, you already know that scene splits Jurassic Park exactly in half. Wonder for the first hour, terror for the second. But here's the part nobody finishes. If the T-Rex scene is the moment terror begins, there has to be a scene where terror is resolved. A closing argument, a mirror. That scene exists. It's 11 minutes long, it involves two raptors and a stainless steel kitchen. And it's not just a great scene on its own, it's a precise, beat-for-beat response to everything the T-Rex escape set up. Same fears, inverted. Same characters, transformed. Same director, making a completely different argument with the exact same toolkit. Once you see the two scenes side by side, you'll realize Spielberg wasn't just building tension twice, he was building a structure. And today we're going to take it apart, piece by piece. Quick recap because this matters. The T-Rex escape happens almost exactly at the midpoint of the film. Before it, awe, Hammond's dream, fully intact. After it, fear, Malcolm's warning, fully proven. A film that splits itself that cleanly in half isn't an accident. It's an argument with two sides, and Spielberg gives each side equal time to make its case, which means the film owes you a verdict. Something has to close the argument the same way the T-Rex opened it. That something is the kitchen scene with the raptors near the end of the film. Now, here's why it can't just be another T-Rex scene. Structurally, repeating the same monster in the same way would flatten the film's arc instead of completing it. The T-Rex already delivered its message. Power without discipline is catastrophic. If the back half of the movie just gives you a second helping of the same fear, the film stalls instead of escalating. So, Spielberg needs a different kind of fear to close the loop. Not bigger, smarter. And what's brilliant is that he doesn't just introduce a new monster and hope the contrast speaks for itself. He inverts the entire toolkit he used in the T-Rex scene. Camera language, sound design, character agency, and uses those inversions to make his closing argument. Every choice that made the T-Rex scene terrifying gets flipped, sharpened, or replaced entirely, because the threat itself has evolved, and so has every character forced to face it. Let's break down exactly how, piece by piece. Start with the cinematography. The T-Rex escape is built on scale, low angles, a 13-second crane shot that fully reveals the beast before it ever touches the car. Spielberg wants you to see exactly how big the threat is, because size is the whole point. The kitchen scene does the opposite. You almost never see the raptors in full. The kitchen is shot in fragments, a snout here, a reflection there, a tail disappearing behind a counter. Spielberg denies you the wide shot that defined the T-Rex's introduction, and that denial is deliberate. Watch how long it takes before you get a clean, unobstructed look at either raptor. It's minutes. Spielberg is willing to sacrifice the kind of spectacle that made the T-Rex reveal so iconic, because spectacle isn't the goal here anymore. Because the raptors aren't supposed to feel big, they're supposed to feel smart. This is the inversion. The T-Rex is an act of God, unstoppable, overwhelming, a force of nature you survive by running. The raptors are something closer to a chess opponent. They're hunting in a pair, communicating, testing doors, splitting up to flank. The grammar of fear changes because the nature of the threat changed. And Spielberg signals this immediately with sound design, the same tool that did so much work in the T-Rex scene. There, thunder and silence built dread before the reveal. Big, environmental, atmospheric. Here, it's the click of claws on tile. Small, precise, almost polite. That's scarier than a roar. A roar tells you where the danger is. A click could be coming from anywhere. And Spielberg uses the kitchen's hard surfaces, steel counters, tile floors, to make every sound ricochet unpredictably. You can't triangulate the threat by ear the way you could with the T-Rex's footsteps shaking the rearview mirror. Even the editing rhythm shifts. The T-Rex scene uses long, sustained takes to build dread slowly, then sudden fast cuts to jolt you. The kitchen scene cuts faster and more frequently throughout because the threat itself is faster, more erratic, harder to track. The editing isn't just showing you the danger, it's making you feel the same disorientation the characters feel trying to track two coordinated predators at once. Remember the rippling water cup in the T-Rex scene? The subjective camera putting you inside the character's growing dread before they understand what's happening? The kitchen scene has its own version, and it might be even more elegant. The raptor's reflection appears in the polished steel of the kitchen counters before the raptor itself enters frame. Same trick, same function. The audience sees the threat fractionally before the characters fully register it. Just enough lead time to feel the dread arrive, but not enough to feel safe. Except here's the upgrade. The water cup was the environment reacting to an unseen threat, a second-hand signal. The reflection is the threat already in the room, hiding in plain sight, using the kitchen's own design against the children. There's no buffer between the audience and the danger anymore. We're not watching ripples and inferring a monster. We're looking directly at the monster, and the monster doesn't know we can see it yet. That's not a coincidence. That's Spielberg telling you something about how far the threat has evolved since the T-Rex. There's a smaller beat worth noticing too. Watch for the moment Lex's breath fogs the steel surface she's hiding behind, right as a raptor's reflection passes across it. It's a tiny detail, barely a second of screen time, but it does the same job the water cup did, making an inanimate surface into a barometer for fear, something we're watching as closely as the characters are. The first monster broke down a wall to get to you. This one was already inside before you knew to be afraid. And the kids know it. That's the difference. In the T-Rex scene, the dawning realization belongs to Tim, watching through night vision goggles, slowly putting pieces together. In the kitchen, Lex and Tim spend most of the scene already aware of exactly how much danger they're in. The suspense isn't about discovery anymore. It's about whether their next move is the right one. Here's the detail that ties the whole thing together, and it's about character, not camera work. In the T-Rex scene, Lex and Tim are passengers in their own survival. Adults make the decisions. Grant grabs the flare. The kids react. In the kitchen scene, that completely flips. Tim is the one who figures out how to override the door lock, working through the mechanism under pressure while a raptor is actively trying to get through it. Lex is the one who reboots the park system shortly after, using her computer skills to bring power back to the entire facility. The children, who spent the T-Rex scene being protected, spend the kitchen scene actively protecting themselves and contributing to the group's survival. This is the same inversion principle applied to character arcs instead of cinematography. And it closes the loop the film opened in its first 10 minutes. Remember, Grant starts this story actively avoiding children, calling them noisy and expensive, and saying he doesn't see the appeal. The T-Rex scene forced him into protecting them against his own instincts. The kitchen scene is where the kids stop needing rescuing and start participating in their own survival, which retroactively validates everything Grant has been forced to learn about them in between. There's a quieter version of this same arc happening with Malcolm too, if you look for it. In the first half of the film, Malcolm is all theory. He argues, he warns, he's right, but he's outside the action. By the time we reach the back half of the film, after his injury, he's mostly sidelined physically. The film makes a clear choice here. The person who diagnosed the problem doesn't get to be the one who solves it. That's left to Grant, and increasingly to the kids themselves. Malcolm's thesis was correct, but understanding a problem and surviving it turn out to be two completely different skill sets. The film isn't just structurally symmetrical, it's emotionally symmetrical. Every character who started the film in one position ends it having moved. And the kitchen scene is where that movement completes for Grant and the kids specifically. Here's a question worth sitting with. Why does the film's tension peak with raptors and not a final T-Rex showdown? The T-Rex already did its job. It proved Malcolm's thesis. Nature finds a way. Control is an illusion. Once that argument lands, repeating it with the same animal would be redundant. You can't escalate fear by showing the audience the exact same kind of danger twice. The second time, it's just confirmation, not revelation. The raptors exist to push the argument one step further. The T-Rex is uncontrollable because it's powerful. The raptors are uncontrollable because they're intelligent. And intelligence is exactly what Hammond's scientists were proudest of engineering. Earlier in the film, we're told the raptors are the smartest dinosaurs in the park, almost as a point of pride. The kitchen scene is where that pride curdles into horror. The raptors are not a failure of containment, they're a success of design turned against the people who designed them. That's the sharper, crueler version of Malcolm's warning. It's not just that the park couldn't control nature, it's that the smarter they made these animals, the less controllable they became. And that scales in exactly the wrong direction for everyone in that kitchen. A bigger, dumber animal is at least predictable. You can outthink it. The raptors are the one threat in the film you can't outthink, because they're doing the same thing to you that you're trying to do to them. This is also, narratively, the most efficient way to end the film's escalation of danger. If Spielberg had saved the T-Rex for the final confrontation instead, the film's argument would collapse back into something simpler: man versus nature, brute force against brute force. By ending on the raptors, the film's closing argument becomes man versus something that thinks like man. That's a more unsettling note to end on, and it's the more honest extension of everything Malcolm spent the first half of the film warning everyone about. The T-Rex scene asked, "Can we contain power?" The kitchen scene answers, "Not when the thing you're containing can think." And there's one final piece of structural elegance worth pointing out before we wrap up. The T-Rex actually does return at the very end of the film to save Grant and the others from the raptors in the visitor center. That's not a contradiction of everything we just laid out. It's the film's last move in this whole symmetry game. The force of nature that nearly killed our characters in Act 1 becomes the thing that saves them from a smarter, more controlled threat in the finale. Spielberg isn't choosing between brute force and intelligence as competing dangers. He's showing you that neither one is inherently good or evil. Both are simply nature, indifferent to the humans caught in the middle of it. The T-Rex doesn't save Grant because it's developed a conscience. It saves him because the raptors happen to be standing between it and its next meal. That's the final piece of Malcolm's thesis, delivered without a single line of dialogue. Nature doesn't pick sides. It was never about good monsters and bad monsters. It was about a system humans believed they could control, doing exactly what uncontrolled systems do, acting in its own interest, with total indifference to ours. Two scenes, same film, same director, same underlying fear. But where the T-Rex escape is overwhelming, the kitchen scene is intimate. Where one scene is about scale, the other is about intelligence. Where one strips characters of agency, the other hands it back. Spielberg didn't need a bigger monster to end this film, he needed a smarter one, and a more capable set of kids to survive it. That's the real symmetry of Jurassic Park, not just wonder versus terror, it's brute force versus cunning, passengers versus participants, a threat you outrun versus a threat you have to outthink. And the fact that both halves of this argument are still standing 33 years later, still studied, still referenced, still terrifying to watch with the lights off, that's the actual achievement here. Not the animatronics, not the CGI, groundbreaking as it was for 1993. It's that Spielberg built an argument into the bones of the film and then had the discipline to let both halves of it breathe equally without ever tipping his hand about which side was right. Because in the end, neither side fully wins. Hammond doesn't get his park, Malcolm doesn't get the satisfaction of being thanked for being right. Everyone just survives, having learned something they'll spend the rest of their lives unable to forget. That's not a moral. That's just what happens when an argument gets taken seriously enough to play out to its conclusion.